Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining ZLH Enterprises webinar on encrypted email. I am Zena Hassel, President of ZLH Enterprises, a technology consulting business located in the greater New York City metropolitan area with international reach. Here with us as well is Zach Schwartz, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Trustifi, a leading provider of email encryption. We do greatly appreciate the value of your time and will endeavor to keep on track with the time frame for the presentation and Q&A period, which we've allowed for afterward. We've got a few poll questions for you. We're going to keep the poll open for about 30 seconds, and this is just in an effort to help us understand the audience to whom we're speaking so that we can ensure that we cover what we think your questions are going to be, even before we get to the Q&A. As many of our clients who are on the phone and the webinar know, we feel that it is our continual mission at ZLH Enterprises to search the marketplace and keep a pulse on the industry for you for industry trends. That is one reason that we have come to put this webinar together on email encryption. So following this, we have noticed, and as I'm sure that you all have, the rise in security breaches and compromises to networks and email. One major reason is that there has been an astronomical rise in the unanticipated use of email over the years. When this public internet was first designed, which seems like eons ago, there was no particular thought of securing data that was passing through its doors, almost akin to sending a postcard versus a sealed envelope through the mail. And the cost of breaches is huge. I'd like to turn this over now to Zach Schwartz of Trustifi to explain what it is that Trustifi has developed and that ZLH Enterprises uses and endorses as its encrypted email product.
Hi, Zena. Thanks so much for that introduction. Just to piggyback off a little bit about what you were saying, if we're just looking at the slide here, seeing some of the large breaches that happened over the last 18 months. We're seeing Target at 18.5 million, Home Depot at 25 million. And because of this, what we're really seeing is compliance agencies step into place and put measures to enforce that enterprise users are really securing their outbound and inbound email communications. So one of the reasons that we see this, we have a slide up here that's provided by Experian of what sensitive information actual value is on the dark web. So here, some high-level numbers that we see: medical records anywhere between $1 and $1,000, credit card information anywhere between 5 and 110. So what this does is it really creates a space for hackers where it's moved from single entities doing this in their pastime to really this becoming something where organizations are creating business cases out of this. So recruiting people directly out of college in order to create companies to steal this information. And that is why it is so important to put things in place in order to protect your information. So what we typically see in the industry are there's two main ways that hackers are infiltrating our systems and stealing information via email. So the first one, which you're probably very familiar with, is phishing or spam. So what hackers are doing is they'll send mass amounts of outbound email communication to various entities in the hopes that a small percentage will actually click on those links and it will have either some sort of malware in it or something in order to steal that information. A lot of that can be prevented by spam filters, firewalls, but also Trustifi has a feature in itself for notification to help prevent this as well, which we'll go into. One of the things that might not be as prevalent or as known in the industry is outbound email communication and the need for encryption. So when people send out in outbound email communication, when we click send, we like to have the thought that once we click send, it's automatically going to hit our recipient's mailbox, and that is just, it's easy, it goes from point A to point B. What we don't realize is there's multiple hops in between where that information can be compromised and stolen. And that's really where Trustifi comes into place, is encrypting that data in transit to make sure that if it's hitting any compromised server or POP in between, that the hacker would not have access to that information. So a little bit of background on Trustifi. The company was built by Israeli technology officers. So what they did in the Israeli military is they created this technology in the most secure way possible. So when dealing with things such as where certain assets were, what the plans were for military engagements, they would use this strict military-grade encryption for that. And what Trustifi has really done was create a software that encompasses that military-grade encryption, but does it in a way that's user-friendly, so we can send out emails for both our sender and our recipient to be able to do this in a single or no clicks. And that's what I think Trustifi has done really well, and what we'll demonstrate in the demo today. So just going through a little bit more of what Trustifi does, as I mentioned, one-click encryption for emails. We also have the ability to automatically encrypt content. So when deploying Trustifi out to our organization, rather than having to train our employees on what needs to be encrypted, what doesn't need to be encrypted, what we can do is, based on the content of their emails, we can automatically encrypt that for them. So if it's something that has to do with, say, a credit card number, a social security number, medical records, anything like that, we can automatically encrypt that, so to protect the organization against any compliance laws, as well as any brand damage for the event that an email is compromised. Some of the other things that we have are electronic postmarking. So with every Trustifi email, we'll have all types of analytics on it. We can see when an email was opened, downloaded, forwarded, printed. And then our electronic postmark takes that a step further, creates a digital fingerprint, which is something that we can actually supply to the courts to prove that an email was in fact delivered and open, very similar to US Postal Service certified mail. And one of the other neat things about Trustifi, we're built on an open API. So if there's any sort of HR reporting tools, any ERP systems, anything like that that you're currently working with, Trustifi software can be integrated into that technology to create an all-encompass single pane of glass solution. So what we're seeing right here, this is probably familiar to a lot of you, but this is basic email architecture. So when a user sends an email, it's going from us writing an email, it's going to leave our email client, hit our email server, and then what's going to happen, what a lot of people don't know, is it's then going to hit the untrusted internet. So if there are any servers or POPs, as I mentioned before, that are compromised in between there, a hacker could potentially view all of our traffic. What we have with Trustifi is where we step in. So what happens with Trustifi is, before that email ever hits the public internet, it's passing through the Trustifi server and creating that wrapper around it that's that military-grade encryption. So in the event that there was a POP or a server in between there that was compromised, when a hacker would look at that data, it would read as jumbled information. And with that 256-bit encryption, it's something that would take, even if they had a supercomputer, it would take them 1,000 years in order to decrypt that. From there, it's then sent to the email client recipient server, and there it'll be decrypted via key. And we'll show you how that works on the demo today. So with all that being said, let's jump into a live demo of Trustifi. So what we're going to do today is we're going to send out a few different emails. The way that Trustifi works is we deploy directly into your Microsoft Outlook, Office 365, or G Suite. For today's demonstration, we're going to show you what this looks like in Microsoft Outlook. So the way that we deploy Trustifi in Microsoft Outlook is we download the Trustifi application within the Microsoft Outlook store. It takes about 10 seconds to download. When we have that, we'll see the Trustifi services icon in the upper right-hand side of the screen, and we'll click on this in order to open up our application. So for this first example, what we're going to do is just send a standard email. So if we see right here, this is encrypt message content. We just want our standard 256-bit encryption, and what we're going to do is send that to a test account that we have. If we see right here, this green icon, what this means is we're pinging the recipient's domain to make sure that they have transport layer security enabled. So this is how we send encrypted documents back and forth, is via TLS. So if this is green, the system says that it's satisfactory to send it this way. In the event that it was not set up, the icon would show as yellow or red in the event that they did not have it set up at all. So what we're going to do is click apply, which is going to add our recipient to the to line and add our encryption methodology to the subject line, and we'll send this out to see what that looks like. And what we're going to do, we're going to send a few different emails with multiple different ways to encrypt an email right now, and then we'll toggle over to our recipient so we can see how all these look like from the recipient side. So the next option that we're going to do is two-factor authentication. So when we use two-factor authentication, we're going to do this in the same way that we did before. Open up our Trustifi application, click on encrypt message content, but also require authentication. So with require authentication, what this does is it's going to require the recipient to authenticate who they are, and that can be done in 3 different ways. So the first option is via SMS message. So if we have the recipient's cell phone number, we type in an email address. We also sync with Active Directory. So I can see for this, I have the recipient's cell phone number. And what's going to happen is they'll receive a PIN code on their cell phone in order to open up that encrypted content. The second option that we have is password. So in the event that we don't have the recipient's cell phone number, what we can do is create a password that both us and them know. For this example, we have last 4 of account number, but we could change this to anything that we both know. So whether that be vendor ID, last 4 social, medical ID, anything like that. For this, we'll make it something simple like 1234. If we can't come up with a password, we don't know their cell phone number, the last option that we use is email. So for email, they'll receive encrypted content, and then they'll receive a follow-up email with the PIN code in order to open up that encrypted content. What we like to do is the most secure way is using SMS, second most password, and third most email. All 3 of these options will pass our major compliance issues such as HIPAA, GDPR, PCI. So for those, we can use any one, but to make it as secure as possible, we recommend phone. For this option, since you can't see my cell phone, we'll show password for this option, for this demo. And we will apply. So same as before, we see the recipient's email address has gone to the to line, and we've added our encryption methodology to the subject line. And we'll send this out. So now let's toggle over to Gmail, and we'll see what these look like. So the first email that we sent through, this is our standard encryption. So this is what it's going to look like in the recipient's inbox. And what Trustifi has done was try to make this as straightforward as possible, because a lot of what we see in the industry when dealing with email encryption is recipients have a very hard time with decrypting messages. They have to go through a portal, sign up for an account, go through multiple steps. And in the end, what we see a lot in the industry is people are just deleting the messages without going through the proper steps. So let's see what both of these look like. When we click on this, we see content is encrypted until authentication is done. And we're simply going to click on decrypt and open, which is going to bring us to a secure site where this message will now decrypt and open. And now we can see that plain text email. If there were also attachments, we could download them directly from here. One of the really neat things about Trustifi is we also have the ability to reply. So this is very important for enterprises that are trying to create that value add. So when sending out information, something such as requesting a W-2 form, a tax ID, a vendor authentication form, something where that request might not necessarily need to be encrypted, but the reply absolutely does because they'll be sending back sensitive information. What we can do is give them this ability to respond back here and add any attachment that they want. So we can get this directly from our hard drive and send that back. Now what we want to do is go back to our inbox, and we're going to see what two-factor authentication looks like. So very similar to what we saw with the first email, we see that this content is encrypted until authentication is done. So same thing, we're going to click on decrypt and open message. As we see here, the message is a little bit different. Here it's asking us to authenticate who we are via password. So here we know the hint is the last four of our account number. I know that the last four of my account number is 1234. So I will decrypt that message, and now I'll be able to view that plain text. Same as before, I will also have the ability to reply back directly within this portal with any attachments that I want to send back. So that's how you send out a Trustifi encrypted email via the plugin, whether that be standard encryption or two-factor authentication. So now what we're going to do is send out two more emails. With this, what we're going to do is use the Trustifi email relay. So with this, there's no need to even click on any buttons in order to decrypt. What's going to happen is the system, as I mentioned before, is going to automatically filter the content of that email and decide for us if it's something that needs to be encrypted. So for here, it might be something where I don't necessarily know that I have encryption on this device. My IT administrator had set this up the day or the week before, and now my emails will automatically follow the protocol that we've set up. So for this, we'll send it out. And just say, thank you for joining today's webinar. Not something that needs to be encrypted, and we'll send this out. So what's going to happen is our content filtering is going to view that email, see that there's no need to encrypt that content, and hopefully send it directly through our filters. If we were to send another email, send it to the same recipient. With this one, I'm writing my credit card number is 4312342133413432. When sending that out, the system is going to pick up that there is a credit card number on that, which will receive a sensitivity score of a 5, and it'll know that that message needs to be encrypted because it's violating PCI laws, and is also that data is valuable on the dark web, not something that we want to get out. So when we send that, we didn't click on anything within the Trustifi application, but we'll see what that looks like as well. So now that we're back over to our recipient's inbox, what we're going to do is click on that first email that came in. So the first email came in plain text, thank you for joining today's webinar. Just as we thought it would do, we didn't click on any encryption buttons, so it came through as a normal email. If we go back to our inbox, we see the second one that we sent out. And the same thing here, we didn't click on any encryption options, but the system picked up that there was a credit card number there, so it's going to automatically encrypt that for us. So same as before, when we click on decrypt and open, it's going to bring us to that secure site. And now the message will decrypt and open, and also the recipient will have the ability to respond back directly here. So with all that done, now we can see how we both send emails back and forth via the Trustifi plugin, as well as also the Trustifi email relay. One other thing to mention about the Trustifi email relay, that this is picking up thousands of different criteria. The criteria can also be amended at the individual enterprise level. So for example, depending on what sort of business that you're working in, or what sort of keywords are strict to your business that needs to be encrypted, we can update those dictionaries and apply them directly to your business. What we're going to do now is go to my sent email and take a look at the Trustifi services application here. Because as we mentioned, with every Trustifi email, we're going to receive all types of analytics on that email. So from here, we can see when that email was read, opened, delivered, and sent. In fact, we can expand this, see what IP address that account was opened up from. So this is something that's important from both a legal standpoint, so proving that in fact, yes, an email was delivered, but it also has a sales application as well. When using Trustifi, you can see when emails have been opened, when they've been forwarded, who they've been forwarded to, if your emails are being read, and for how long. And you can see that all directly within your Microsoft Outlook client or your G Suite as well. One of the other things I want to show is what we do around inbound emails. So what we've gone over so far is how we protect ourselves via outbound emails, so protecting in the event that a server or node is compromised somewhere in transit. But here what we're going to do is also supply some analytics around inbound emails, so checking for those phishing or spam, if it's actually a real email, or if it's a potential hacker trying to steal information from us. So here's one, for example, that we have that was supposed to be PayPal support, asking for us to confirm our identity. In this, there's malicious links. And we see here that our system picked up that this is a suspicious email, and our system has detected it's a phishing attack. The way we do that is through multiple tests. So we're checking the DKIM, SPF, DMARC, and return path. We're also matching up these email addresses against blacklisted email addresses on the dark web. So here's a few other ones. This is one for my CEO asking for my W-2 information. Here the system also deemed this as a spoofing attack. It looked like it was coming from him, but it didn't pass any of our tests. So what Trustifi really focuses on is outbound email encryption and security. This is a feature that we have that layers on top of whatever anti-spam or anti-phishing tools you have today. So this is really your last line of defense. In the event that an email does get through the system, these tests will still be there, so you'll have a notification system. It's not going to block anything, but you will know that it's something that you can run through your emails. And that pretty much concludes the demo for today. So I'm going to toggle back over to our PowerPoint, and we have some comparisons.
Yeah, I think, Zach, if you can speak to on the comparative chart, the vast majority of the folks that are on the call today are Outlook users, with 73% Outlook, 18% Gmail. And if you could just speak a bit to why is Trustifi recommended over perhaps what might be available through Outlook 365? Office
Sure.
365, sorry about that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that Trustifi does is Trustifi is an email security provider. That is all we do. We try to make sure we are best of breed at email security. With Barracuda and Microsoft, obviously, they are massive companies that have many different branches that focus on all different aspects of security. So what happens with both of these is the email security portion is a small feature set that comes along with the vast security tools that they have, which in turn makes it so not as much resources or time is devoted to those products. With Trustifi, we have the most secure system possible, which Office 365 might be able to match, but with the ease of use that Trustifi has, far outweighs anything that Barracuda or Office 365 can do. So when using both of those systems, it's going to require you, if you're not already an Office 365 user or a Barracuda user, to sign up for a username or password, go through multiple steps in order to decrypt those messages. And I think I mentioned this before, but what we see in the industry is it's one thing to train your own employees on how to use email encryption, why they need to use email encryption. But what we see as the main problem is when dealing with our customers' customers, and they're having to send out encrypted emails, that they're receiving all sorts of negative feedback that this is not the best way to do it. They don't want to use email encryption. They don't see the need. But what Trustifi can do is present it in a way that's so straightforward and so easy that it's a single click and they're able to use it.
Thank you, Zach. And in the interest of maintaining the time period that we had allocated for the presentation, I think we're doing very well. I wanted to remind people that for all of those who had joined today's presentation, we do have a demo account, product introduction that we can set up for you. So either please use the chat function, or if you would prefer, you can send an email to info@zlhent.com. We'll establish the demo account for you promptly. What I want to do as well is just open up for any questions that anyone on the call has with respect to the Trustifi product. Why is it different than things that are out there? Why do we really need it? And I'll just give you a little anecdote. Sometimes we use it when we know, as Zach had mentioned, that there is going to be sensitive data running back and forth. We will initiate the email through Trustifi because we know the back and forth responses, including the attachments, are going to maintain the encryption, as opposed to having to rely upon the person that we've asked information for to make sure that they encrypt what's coming to us. So, do we have any questions from anyone in the listening audience? I'm going to ask you a question then, Zach. Is the Trustifi email relay the same as a plugin?
So the Trustifi email relay differs from the plugin. With the email relay, it's something that can be deployed in a couple minutes. So what we're simply doing is redirecting traffic that we post as we want to be encrypted and sending that through our servers. With the Trustifi email relay, it's deployed at the email gateway level. So what we're doing is actually ingesting all the traffic that comes through. And in fact, there's even some machine learning that goes on with that, where we're trying to decipher what emails need to be encrypted and what emails do not need to be encrypted. So this is something that we set up so there's really no need for the plugin. And in fact, it's something that's even going to work on your mobile device as well. So there's no need for an application on your phone. There's no Trustifi app. All that's going to happen is, in fact, 100% of your outbound traffic will pass through Trustifi, and then we'll determine whether to encrypt it or not.
And Zach, is that the enterprise model versus the individual email accounts?
Correct. So with the Trustifi email relay, there are minimums. So it's reserved for organizations of 25 users or more, just because of the amount of traffic that needs to be ingested. For our single users or anyone below 25 users, they can use the Trustifi email plugin, which can be purchased directly from the Microsoft Outlook store or the G Suite store.
Okay, so there are two flavors really that can be utilized.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any questions from anyone in the listening audience? We are running exactly on time.
So we have one question in, how is the installation done? So the installation can be done in multiple ways. If we have, for our larger organizations, we're deploying the email relay. The way that that's done is we're going to redirect your outbound email traffic via connector to the Trustifi servers. So that implementation takes, on average, about 2 hours to complete. For installation of the Trustifi plugin, it's simply done either through the Outlook store or the G Suite store, where you can download the plugin. Before then, you'll also have to sign up for an account via Trustifi.com or going through info@zlh.com. Sorry,
Okay.
zlhent.com.
Are there any other questions that have come in? If not, I would like to thank everyone who participated on today's webinar. We do appreciate you having joined us today for the product introduction. Again, if you would like your no-cost demo, please send it to us via chat or via, I guess at this point, unencrypted email, which we can encrypt on the way back, to info@zlhent.com, and then we will establish that demo account for you. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Zena. Much appreciated.
Okay.
And thanks, everyone, for joining.